Welcome to this week's video. So what we're going to cover today is what is tempo. So we're going to look at when you're doing your lifts, and I refer to the tempo of the lift, what it is and what that means. Very quick introduction then. So the three things that we're going to cover today is what actually is tempo. So when I'm saying about tempo, you have an understanding of what it actually is. I want you to leave this video knowing why it is so important. And then thirdly, I want you to understand how to use it to your advantage. So when you're not training with me, you're training on your own, or you're following a program, but you're on your own, I want you to know how to manipulate the tempo to get the best results for yourself. Straight into it then. So tempo is the rate and the time it takes us to perform each single repetition, all right? So if we're doing 3 sets of 10, each individual rep of them 10 reps will have a set time, all right? So it's broken down into 4 sections, as you can see on the left and the right: eccentric, isometric, concentric, and isometric, all right? So on the right-hand side here, there's a good graphic showing what this means. So the first number is going to be the eccentric phase. So for example, if you are doing a bench press, on the way down, when the bar is coming down, that is our first number. That's the eccentric phase. And effectively, when the gravity is pulling the weight down, that's the first number. So if it was on a back squat, the first number would be on the way down. If it was on an RDL, on the way down, that's the first number. So I'm just trying to give you as many examples there so you can understand what that first number represents. And as you can see here, so on the right hand side, if it said 4, if we use the bench press as an example, you've got the bench in front here, it's at the top of the lift, and you're going to do your first rep. On the way down, if it says 4, that means it takes 4 seconds to get from the top to the bottom, okay? When you get to the bottom, then we'd move to the next number along, which is the isometric phase, all right? And this is where we're static. This is where the weight stops. So here on the right-hand side, an example, the number's 1. So that means you'll have a 1 second pause. So we'll stick with the example of squat on the right, sorry. So if we look at 4 seconds on the way down, then the next number across, we're looking at a 1 second pause. So at the bottom of the squat, we're going to hold it for 1 second. Then the next number along is dynamic, so we're on the concentric phase. And then if there's an X, that means it's maximal effort, all right? So here, 99% of the time, the concentric phase is going to be an X. We want to come up as quick and as explosively as we can. Even if we don't end up coming up quick and explosive, our brain has to tell our body we're coming up as fast and aggressive as possible, okay? And then the final one, again, is static, and that's an isometric, and that's almost a mini rest at the top, all right? So here, we're having a 2 second pause. We might control our breathing, we might brace our core, we might slightly adjust our positioning, and then we go again, and it starts again. We go for the 4 second eccentric phase on the way down, we have a 1 second pause at the bottom, we come up fast and aggressively, and then we have a 2 second pause, and we repeat that process. So for example, if we're doing 4 sets of 10, each rep would look like that. Okay, so hopefully that gives you an understanding of how we'd read the number. So on the top right there, 41x2. If it said, bottom left as well, if it said 4 sets of 10 bench press and the tempo was 41x2, like the right hand side, you should now understand how to read them numbers, all right? So just to reiterate, 4 seconds on the way down, 1 second pause, coming up as fast as you can because it says X, and then a 2 second pause at the top, and then we repeat that through all our repetitions, okay? So that's a very quick overview of how to read the tempo and what it is, but simply, it's the rate and the time it takes us to perform each single repetition. So why is tempo so important? Why can't we just go in the gym, do whatever we want, do whatever speed or as slow as we want or as fast as we want and still get the same results, all right? So I'm going to explain now why that isn't the case and why we need to have tempo on all our lifts, all right? So first point is, as I mentioned in previous videos and through our training together, is training is stress to the body. So we need to understand the amount of stress that is getting placed on the body to make sure we're getting the right adaptations, and 1, making sure we're not overtraining and putting too much stress on the body, and 2, making sure that if there's not enough, that we need to get the correct amount, because if we're going in and there's not enough, then we're wasting our time. So tempo is a great tool to use to monitor that and manipulate it. All right, so depending where we are in our training phase or in our training goals, we can manipulate the tempo of the same exercise to get different adaptations at different times. All right, so you'll get exposed to this throughout your time training with myself and at ELEV8. All right, so another one is using slow tempos can be a great way to develop motor control. So what this means is, so when you are newer to lifting and I say to you, do a back squat or do a goblet squat, and you're not quite sure how to tell your brain to do that, although I give you the coaching points, your brain needs to process all them coaching points and tell your legs and your core and your body what to do. And that is a skill. That takes time. Like anything in life, that takes time to do. You can't just instantly do it. The 1% of people can just do it, and the rest of us have to take time and learn. So this is where tempo is a great tool. So because if we slow the movement down, if you've trained with myself, you'll know that I always say slow the eccentric phase down, slow it down, control the weight, have a pause at the bottom. This is so you can understand the movements and have a feel for what it feels like and feel what certain muscles need to be engaged, and opposed to just willy-nilly just dropping straight into the squat and firing straight up with no control. All right, so it's a great tool to help people progress who maybe aren't as competent as we need to be to load the bar up and stuff like that. All right, and then final one, adding tempo, you can ensure repeatability from session to session. So this is a really good one, especially at ELEV8, because we're trying to increase the weight, we're trying to increase the load, we're trying to progress each week. This is a really good tool. So I actually had this with one of the guys on the last week. So they could do 50 kilos week 1, and they could also do 50 kilos week 3, say. But they couldn't do any more. But what's potentially changed is the tempo that they were lifting. Week 1, I guarantee they were firing that bar down really quick, firing up nice and quick and just going straight into it. Week 3, the tempo will be a lot more slow and controlled now that we're making people have a slow and controlled eccentric phase. All right, so now we're introducing tempo. We can make sure that each week the tempo is the same, so when the weight goes up, it stays at the same tempo, and then we know we're progressively getting stronger. Where if each week we were just consistently doing a different tempo, 50 kilos one week would feel really easy if we were going really quick, but then the next week if we have a tempo, it'd feel really hard. So that can help keep consistent lifting. So what I want to touch on quickly here is how you can use and we can use tempo to our advantage. All right. So the first scenario is if you're newer to lifting, we can utilize tempo to help you improve your motor control. So like I mentioned, your brain telling your body what to do during the lift. This is a skill, and we can utilize the tempo to improve this by having a slow eccentric phase, which is going to give us more control throughout the lift, and a slight pause at the bottom. So let's just say we're doing a goblet squat. We might have a 4-second eccentric phase followed by a 2-second pause at the bottom. And this is going to give you a chance to really feel what muscles need to be engaged and get a feel for the movement, which is going to help you progress it when we add more load, okay? So the next one is, let's say you've learned how to lift now, you understand it, we've got good motor control. Now we've got a heavier load. We want to, again, control that eccentric phase to create more time under tension. So now we might have like a 3-second eccentric phase across 10 reps, which effectively is 30 seconds of time under tension on the bar. With the bar on your back, for example, and that's going to help us build muscle utilising the tempo of each lift. All right. Final one is power. So how to build explosive strength. Okay. Here we want minimal time under tension, and we want to move as fast as possible. All right. So again, we might have utilising the X or a 1-second eccentric phase, basically allowing the athlete to understand that they need to move the bar as fast as physically possible during certain movements. All right. And this is going to help us build power. Just to reiterate then, we have gone through what tempo is, why is it so important, and how to use it to your advantage. Okay, remember it's essential to use tempo. So when you're training with myself at ELEV8 and the other coaches, remember when we prescribe you the reps in reserve, the tempo, all this stuff is really important to help you progress and achieve the goals you need to. Okay, great work, another week in ELEV8. Well done.